All right, so this is the volunteer committee. We're going to do roll call. Director Hannah
Present.
and Director Cockrell. And Chief Cox is here as well.
And item 3, we'll skip the Pledge of Allegiance and go straight to public comments. There's nobody else in the room and there is nobody else on Zoom. After that, item number 5 is new business, and we'll start with the volunteer program manual. This is the update from the last program manual that we reviewed, and it has 2 components. It's got the policy and the handbook. So
Is there a copy of that?
nope, you can have this one though,
Oh, okay.
and the policy if you like.
That wasn't changed too much, is it?
Oh.
I read all this stuff online.
Yeah. And happy to answer any questions. About
We'll just review the changes that were made. I think we changed the support position to be specific towards one individual, and as a retirement, that'll fade away.
Yep.
Correct. Maybe with some language in there to make sure that we are specific in what the person can and cannot do.
Correct. Yeah.
In that role. Okay. That was one of the changes. Remind me of another one here before as I'm scrolling down.
I think the second was changed.
Yeah, the stipend was changed from $10 to $12 per call, and then some cleanup of the language at the beginning about the Half Moon Bay volunteers versus the Coastside volunteers in the history about the district.
The page that the stipend changed.
That should be the last page, I believe. 29. One other change on the background checks for new volunteers is adding in actually the live scan. In addition to the background check, the live scan is just the FBI record check.
Okay, so just one more layer of history.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's standard with what Cal Fire would do in general or with other agencies.
It's not standard with CAL FIRE, it's standard with other agencies. Okay. Yeah, as a part of the background, live scan and a background investigation is pretty standard.
Sir, I assume cost associated with that.
Yeah, it's like $30 a person.
Okay.
Fairly normal. You can go down to like, FedEx Kinko's and get it done.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So on there, JP.
No, same things you guys pointed out, the site notice. Yeah, it was
So all the staff is recommending is taking this forward to the full board for adoption, the policy and the manual.
There was no changes in that.
I don't believe there was any change on that
Policy.
it was over here. I think that I'll give all this stuff back to him. So this is just, as I recall, there are any changes in here I missed. But this was the restatement of what we already had.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the direction, the request from President Burke to actually establish a policy regarding the volunteer program that then gave rise to the program manual. Essentially authorize the program.
Yeah, sure.
So Kai, do they need to make motions at the committee level, or is it just kind of consensus?
I think you can handle it either way. Particularly with 2 people, it's pretty easy to read what the recommendation is. So as long as it's clear to everyone there what the recommendation for the board is, I think you can do it by motion, or you can just look at each other and agree to make the recommendation.
Perfect.
Consensus, I think is the word. Sense of the body,
Governance by body language.
right,
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm ready to accept it and move it forward to the board. Jamie.
I'm good with that, absolutely, yeah.
Good. Consensus is we take it to the board for a vote and move it forward.
All right. Item B is just the update on the paramedic training program. Again, the board was looking for recommendation from the volunteer committee about what action to take. You'll see in the staff report, some of the questions that came up at the last board meeting were kind of the timeline, how it's broken down, what the costs are, what a potential stipend would be. I worked with Gene on the stipend piece and looked at what the board's compensation for board members for stipends is. And then looked at like kind of what's reasonable for what they're going to be doing regarding the amount of driving they'll be doing and number of meals. And that's how we came up with that number of $100 per week for them to at least be able to cover their fuel and meals while they're down there.
100 a week,
100 a week per person, yeah.
It's essentially driving down, driving back. So 2 trips
Yep.
plus meals for the 3 nights. Wednesday,
Yeah.
Thursday,
so they're not
or
asked,
maybe 2 nights.
2 nights
they're
probably.
not asked to eat the whole thing, okay, all right.
And the housing, we're still under the assumption that it's covered at a station or.
Yep, housing is covered at the station, so they don't have any accommodation expenses. This will at least cover fuel and some meals for them.
Will the training be held at the academy?
The training will be held in Seaside, at a facility in Seaside.
At the,
In Seaside in Monterey County.
right,
Yeah, they have I don't know what the actual building is. It's rented by the South Bay Regional Training Academy,
okay,
and they use a facility in Seaside.
and then is there some sort of a also approved dormitory or
Yep,
which is right close to it as well?
yeah, it's within 15-20 minutes of the location.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then 5,000 for 50 weeks. All right. So that comes out $33 a day.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And it includes the driving back and forth. I don't know the cost of meals, will that? cover
Yeah,
most of
yeah,
it?
so our state meal rate is, if you put breakfast, lunch and dinner, 20 to 32, 39, I think is what our meal rate
Okay.
is for 3 meals a day. So it's within reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But that number also includes a little bit of fuel and maintenance.
It
costs.
does, yeah.
So now when you say 33,
Yes,
because at 39, what I had looked up previously was about 43 or something, which,
Yeah.
breaks down each meal plus $5 for incidental.
Yeah,
And then I'm not sure the mileage distance based on
it's about 2 hours, it's probably
65, 70.
100 miles.
Probably.
pretty slow driving.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it is.
And that's
I mean-
just a recommendation. It's the board's decision about what.
If anything, it sounds good, but a little low. I mean, because if you just took 40 a day for food and then 200 miles roughly round trip.
Yeah.
At, I don't know what the standard is, 65 cents a mile these days, or what is the IRS?
I don't know.
It's gone up recently, I think.
There is a government rate.
Yeah, there is an IRS rate.
The IRS rate is, I think it's 0.6554 or something.
Yeah.
All right. So that would be, 100 miles is 60. So 220 round trip. Plus, if it was 40, 40, 40, or 2 meals for 2 days, 3 days. That's 120.
3 days of meals.
This is a significant increase with what we initially discussed, which.
Yeah,
I think
Well,
is-
also is so to finish that, so there is potential to raise the stipend in that sense, that it's quite a low end.
yeah,
And again, I don't think the board, or anyone is trying to make it a vacation either, but it's to help the individual financially get through this program.
Yeah.
maybe we can just look at that a little further and see if it's accurate enough.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna go with the IRS rate of 65, let's say 65
Well,
cents.
which one did this number get based on, you know?
This is just a ballpark
Right.
rough for the week.
Okay.
So if you take the IRS rate of 65, it's $130 a century round trip, right?
Okay.
And then if you do a $40 per day meal amount, you're looking at about $250 per week instead of 100,
Right, so twice that.
2.5.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there's a in between, you know, this is the low, that's the high, I don't know what. I mean, is this purely just up to us to decide, or is there
100%.
something, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
so we're not under any kind of. Specific rules or guidelines,
So the other financial number would be the Nova eligibility.
Yep.
Why just one qualify?
So it sounds like one of them qualifies for whatever their parameters are for providing funding. It doesn't sound like they're both gonna qualify.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
So
it's not
this
the
is
first.
this beyond our control then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's federally funded workforce development money that has qualifying requirements.
Okay,
And it sounds like in discussions, one of them does meet those requirements, one doesn't. So, you know, only one of them would have the offset cost.
Any knowledge on the one that potentially meets it, the likelihood of that coming through, I mean, I don't know what their screening is their initial screening, say, yeah, you're gonna be eligible, but there's still a lot of things that
I
could change it.
think it's fairly
It's fairly,
cut and dry, yeah, for them.
the only. I mean, that obviously is out of our hand. The only change I would say that staff recommends is to consider a stipend up to 100 a week. We have to decide how much of this is going to be for the board to eat the whole thing, or how much of it's going to be up to the individual.
Right,
Now, I only personally know of one other person who became a paramedic, and that's a fellow who's a Hayward firefighter,
mhm,
and he did 100% on his own.
Right.
There was no department support whatsoever,
right,
so,
yeah, and I think that's really the kind of decision of the board as to where the give and take is. I think $100 stipend at least offsets some of their personal costs. It's not gonna offset all of it, but it's a gesture of assisting them versus covering the full amount.
well, I don't think this program was established for somebody to get well during the training,
Right,
although this will qualify him to get well after the training,
right.
so, okay, all right. Yeah, I can live with the 5,000, yeah.
And then, yeah, there is that idea of having some skin in the game, right? Like
Yes,
when you're personally putting in money on a daily basis, the incentive starts to change a little bit.
it does, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. But this, on the other hand, it's not going to be such a burden that it would drive somebody away.
Right,
And then, of course, the district would pick up the whole 36,000. I understand that.
yeah,
All right. That's less than the original numbers we were throwing around, but the original numbers we were throwing around
agreed, yeah.
involve more people. Yeah,
Mhm.
got it.
One of the things that also came up during the regular board meeting was a contract, that was not put in here. You know, listening to the conversation during that meeting, it sounds like the past history with success on contracts was not very positive, and they kind of forgave the whole thing in the end anyway. So my interpretation of that exchange was that it wasn't what the board was hoping to pursue as a contract.
Yes, yeah. I opine that we're not in the business of providing paramedics throughout the state at our expense.
Right,
However, on the other hand, if these people live in the district and at least one of them probably is not going to move out of the district,
Right.
in which case the district would benefit directly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I mean, really, the bottom line of this is it's a creative out of the box, giving it a try, seeing if it works and
Yes.
weighing up the cost benefit of trying something new.
well, I could see this maybe expanding in the future.
Right.
If it's successful.
Right.
Yeah, and in the future, if this, this being the pilot program, we do continue this on to next budget years. Contract, I was never a fan of either in the sense of tying someone directly to a specific thing, but what we can do in the future if we want, and this is per conversations I've had with Gene, was, at the process of application, you can, if you wish, put in something at that point that would say you have some responsibility for X number of months of service or years, if that's presented at the time of application. And it's not so much a contract as I don't know how to describe it as a contract,
Right.
but it's not saying it's tying you to a job specifically or anything like that, but it gives you some sense of responsibility towards the amount that the board is putting forward, the district is putting forward for your education,
Right.
and then tying you to at least kind of working it off over time in that sense. So that's something we could look at.
Yeah.
Doing.
Well, the example I used was when someone goes to one of the service academies and graduates, they're expected to pay back a certain number of years within that service
Right.
or a service.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this looks, I can agree with the amounts here. I mean, like I said, I saw larger amounts, there's lesser amounts, but it's something that help. As far as the stipend is concerned and whatnot, makes sense to me.
Right. Cool.
Were the people, the two volunteers who were, looks like are hard, were they led to believe that there would be some financial assistance from the district?
No, not, my understanding is they are not under the impression that there's any.
So this is a good thing, that this
Yes.
will be
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
A
This is-
pleasant,
An incentive,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And as far as the finance piece of it goes, the core module 1, which is their first module of the 3, will be this fiscal year, which will pay out this fiscal year through reimbursement.
Mhm.
And then next fiscal year, we'll budget it in for additional training, essentially.
Okay. Sounds good to me. And then the whole board will vote on this thing.
Yeah, so the recommendation there was to direct us to put a recommendation and resolution forward to the full board to actually adopt this program and move it forward.
Well, there's some typos, there's some editorial corrections, I'm comfortable with the way it is written.
The only thing I might add there, Director Cockles, well, maybe I'll put some discussion, just elaborate more on the stipend about how it's not intended to cover the full cost, but it's
Mhm.
intended to partially cover, or offset their
Sure,
out-of-pocket costs.
sure.
Okay.
right, so like it says, the stipend will be used to cover the expenses, would be used to, obviously it's not gonna cover it, maybe 100%, so it's a different word there for.
Partially cover.
Yeah.
or-
Offset,
Offset,
Yeah.
assist.
used to offset the expenses.
Mhm.
Yeah. Or partially offset.
Sure. Yeah. Just so, yeah, it's known. that-
Perfect. Okay.
And between this and the actual handbook, and I think kind of going back to one of my questions that I've always had,
Yeah.
which is how that volunteer could work in the district as a volunteer.
Yeah.
Medic. And we discussed how that would or would not work.
Yeah.
Based on the local staff
Yeah.
and paramedic supervisory staff.
Yeah.
Is there anything further on that as far as what that would mean as far as the position here that's currently not paid for by the code side? Is that a conversation to be had with San Mateo County? Is that more than a conversation? Is that, what would be the next step to find out how to make that happen?
Yeah, so that really goes into a little bit of a bigger project in the sense that it's gonna be changing the scope of what the service delivery is, right? Going from like,
When I figure we have quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not bringing it up now to solve it now,
right,
but I do want to bring it up, keep it on the forefront so that we can look at this. But call it a problem or not, but the thing to accomplish potentially and how to accomplish it. We have a lot of time to do that. We're not gonna have EMTs or paramedics on the coast as volunteers anytime soon.
right.
And it looks like by the time they're actually working on the coast, it would be a year to a year and a half from now.
Yeah.
Now that 15 months, is that at the bottom of this, 13 to 15 months, is that kind of after they've done everything, including, I guess, on the job training?
Yeah, so they'll do their 3 modules, their internship, and then take their national registry exam. So they should be turnkey by June, July of next year. Yeah, essentially with a
And
license.
at June, July, then at that point, would they be turnkey, obviously still fresh, then doing a number of shifts or whatnot with paid staff? Or, like Cal Fire is the 5 call or whatnot to get your,
Yeah, so 5 calls accreditation. So you go through the training, you do your internship, you take your national registry exam. And once you have your national registry exam, you have your P card.
Okay.
And then once you have your P card, wherever you get hired or work, you go through the accreditation
right,
process.
so that's for that organization specific.
It's for that county, for that LEMSA.
Okay.
So we're a part of San Mateo County. We follow the 5 call process for the county.
All right.
And then you're licensed to practice or what's called accredited in that county. So any medic in this county is accredited to work in this county.
So this would be referred to as the initial operating experience, is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Although they're fire employees, they're under the medical director of the county.
That was gonna bring me to my next question. The volunteer paramedic would be in the same chain of command as the professional paramedic.
Yeah, and we were just saying that's gonna have to get flushed out a little bit more because we don't have a volunteer paramedic program right now.
Mhm.
And it's not as simple as just, oh, they can just be paramedics and volunteers at the same time. Because there's the paramedic oversight piece of it, narcotic chain of command, or sorry, chain of custody, kind of equipment checkout, all that stuff that is involved. So that is worth, if it's the intent of the board to go that direction, that's worth kind of doing a deep dive on what it would require and what it would mean.
Well, I understand that once the person gets his certification, there is nothing to prevent that person from shopping this anywhere.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they, just like any person with a paramedic license, there's nothing stopping them from moving.
Okay.
Nothing like that.
All right.
Yeah. What I would hope that, the goodwill of the district goes a long way for.
Well, my only comment was there was a volunteer who went right from here to Los Angeles City.
Right,
And my guess, and I don't recall anything the district did to assist this person. So this person obviously went out and did it on his own,
right,
junior college or whatever.
yeah,
But I was kind of surprised. And I said, well, where was Cassie? Oh, she went to LA City.
right,
Oh, okay, good for her.
Well, and caveat or another thing that I read through, which I think is true, if the volunteer becomes a medic and then becomes a employee of COSI, now that person cannot volunteer on the COSI because you can't volunteer in the place that you earn a living because it would be deemed.
Conflict.
Well, it's not, yeah, you would have to get paid essentially. They would look at it like hours they have to, and again, I read this, I don't know, I have to follow up, but that could be a thing that, okay, it is what it is, but.
so you're talking about if they get hired by CAL FIRE and assigned here?
Oh, yeah, so if they're working
No,
with
let's-
COSI,
let's-
which is Cal Fire.
Let's
Yeah.
put this in the form of a question. If a person got hired by CAL FIRE, thanks to his paramedic certification, could he continue to be a volunteer in the district?
Yeah, so that's a great legal question for Kai. It's not really an operational question for me. I've heard it both ways. I've worked in counties where they don't allow it. I've worked in counties where they do allow it. So I think it's really a legal interpretation and we'd have to probably work with a specialist on.
So this becomes an ad hoc decision then,
Yeah, a legal decision.
case by case.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because technically, they're a CAL FIRE employee, they're not a district employee.
No, okay.
And if you're volunteering for the district, you're not volunteering for the same agency you work for. Because they're separate entities. It's how you interpret that, or how that's interpreted.
Will the paramedic program is part of the JPA, right? Paramedic JPA?
Yeah, so the JPA really just, the JPA that we're in says. We will provide paramedics on 3 fire engines in the district.
Yes, okay.
And in return, the JPA will pay us X number of dollars minus dispatch costs for each of those apparatus.
Okay.
And we'll respond to all calls within the district within 6 minutes and 59 seconds. And
Okay.
we'll be a part of an automatic aid agreement countywide. That's,
So there is a little bit of separation right there then, is there not?
there is, yeah, yeah. And the volunteers don't fall in the ALS JPA. That's the paid companies. Are the paid engines that the district has in the JPA.
Okay.
All right, well, it's good thing to follow up on. Like I said, I had read that and that there's more gray area, like the way you described it, because they don't work for the district specifically, and that would be very helpful, because obviously it would be great to have. You have someone working locally.
Yeah.
Could also be a volunteer if they wish.
The other way I've seen that worked is the board can authorize that employee can be paid overtime through the contract for their responses, if it's a compensation issue.
We can look at that in the future.
All right,
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
good with that going to the full board?
Sure. I
Yeah.
think we kind of discussed all the questions that will come up in the board.
Yeah. Perfect.
As in with any issues, people will immediately go to the dollars and cents.
Yeah.
And, my only question was how come one gets the whole amount, the other gets nothing, but you explained that well.
Yeah.
So,
Perfect. Anything else, Guy?
That's it.
All right.
Easy morning.
Good morning.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, well,
All
during.
right, thank you.
Take care.
here is your documents back.